Big Sills! Welcome aboard. You know, I want to do something here right out of the gate here. And I'm going to attack Bill Polian. The former general manager and Hall of Fame scumbag who ran the Bills and the Indianapolis Colts. So he's going around telling lies about Ryan Leaf now to accentuate and change the narrative on who he is. Remember something. His history right now is this. He goes around telling people that he had a first-round grade on Tom Brady when no one on the planet did. That was a complete lie. He's the same guy that told Lamar Jackson to play wide receiver instead of quarterback. Now he's going around telling lies that his meeting with Ryan Leaf was awful. Ryan posted it on his Twitter page. That's not the case. We had a great meeting. It was a wonderful meeting. But Polian wanted you to know the reason that he drafted, because it's 25 years. The anniversary is this draft on the Manning and Leaf deal. Polian's going around lying and telling people that he had a horrible meeting, and that was the determining factor on why he chose Peyton Manning over him. It was a lie. He got lucky. He got lucky. But he would rather have you believe that it was his insight, that he had some knowledge because he spoke to Leaf. Leaf goes, it was a blatant lie. We had a wonderful meeting, and it did not turn out that way. Bill Polian's a liar. Most of these general managers are. That's what makes what Howie's doing in Philadelphia remarkable. He's not like Bill Polian. Howie Roseman's a better general manager than Bill Polian. Just because the fact that he's a decent dude. He's a decent dude. Right there shows you, again, having communication with your guys, believing in your guys, trusting your guys, and not bullshitting your guys. If he'll lie about that, Bill Polian will lie about anything. That's what makes Howie and how he's running the Eagles pretty remarkable. I'll tell you, in the 2 years covering your team, the one thing that I could tell you definitely about Howie Roseman, I really don't believe he's a bullshit artist. Bill Polian is a bullshit artist. That's a bullshit artist. I don't believe Howie is that. And you have to understand where Barrett and I come from. The school of GM bullshit artist, you could put a Hall of Fame of bullshit artist GMs. The biggest bullshitters in an NFL organization are the GMs. This guy's not a bullshit artist, Howie Roseman. Okay? He's not. I mean, it's incredible. And watch this. Hey, Bill. Okay, Ryan failed. Okay, Bill. All the things off the field. It turned out to be true. He wasn't good in the locker room. Congratulations, Bill. But to sit around 25 years later and kick the guy in the face still shows you the character of Bill Polian. He's a piece of shit. Howie Roseman doesn't treat his dudes like that. You know what, too? I've never heard Howie Roseman say one disparaging word about Carson Wentz. Okay, I have not. Have you? Anything that you would go, that guy's an asshole. Have you heard anything that Howie has said about arguably his biggest mistake since he's been general manager? By the way, I'm not sitting here defending Ryan Leaf for the kind of dude he is. I'm totally not. I'm just looking at Polian and showing you what kind of bullshit artist that you have to deal with when you're in the NFL. It's not what everybody thinks. 95% of the people at the NovaCare Center, or I'm going to take that back. 95% of the football teams have people in their front offices that will constantly lie to you and never tell you the truth. Okay? I mean, terrible. And that's why you're seeing a place that people want to come and play now. They want to play in Philly because the GM is honest with you. Hey, here's a 1-year deal. Prove it. You're either going to get your money here or somewhere else. Look at CJ. He turned a guy making less than $900,000 into a guy that can make $8 million this year. Look what he did for Kaiser White's career. Look what he did for TJ Edwards' career. I'm talking more about the environment in the building and how good it is to be an Eagle. Does he make mistakes in the draft? Yes. And by the way, I'm not going to quantify the take. I'm just saying this is the prime example. And by the way, this guy's in Canton. The biggest bullshit artist in the history of the NFL is in Canton. Bill Polian is not a trustworthy guy or a truthful guy. He doesn't tell the truth. Howie Roseman, by all accounts, tells players the most important thing that you want to hear. You know what that is? Tell the truth and be honest. Whether it hurts you or not, just be honest. All the players want is to hear the truth. That's if you ever watch that movie Moneyball, and he's trying to talk to his assistant, and he's telling his assistant, hey, you got to fire these guys, or maybe you got to trade these guys, or you got to demote these guys. And the guy goes, what should I tell him? He goes, tell him the truth. Hey, the travel agent will be in touch with you. They'll make plans for you to where you're going. You're going down. And good luck to you. That's all the player wants to hear. He doesn't want to hear some bullshit story like Bill Polian has. Dude, guy, that really rubs me wrong when I see guys that like to try to change their history. Bill, you got lucky on Peyton Manning. Leaf was the better prospect. And you got lucky. And you know how I know he got lucky? When he goes around telling lies that he had a first-round grade on a player who went in the 6th round, Tom Brady. Brady was better than your guy. But you had a first-round grade on Tom Brady when no one else on the planet did but you. And then on the other hand, you throw a racist comment out at Lamar Jackson. Hey, tell me this isn't racist. I don't think Lamar can make it in the NFL as a quarterback. You better play wide out. Isn't that old man Jim Crow stuff? Isn't that old man stuff like that? Isn't that the old school black quarterbacks can't play in the NFL? Isn't that old school bullshit? Hey, you better play wide out. Come on, man. I have no respect for that guy. I have no respect for Bill Polian. You beat him. Leaf was a bust. Let it go, dude. I'll tell you something. We had Rich McKay on. We had Rich McKay on the program. And I was a bust. Okay? I was a bust. But at least Rich threw me a lifeline when he came on. He's now the president of the Falcons. And he was the general manager of the Bucks. And you know what he said? Sills, we didn't help you out at all in any way. Okay? Okay? We didn't help you out at all in any way, moving you to nose guard. You never played it. And you're a 3 technique. You're not a 0 technique. You're not a nose. Okay? Joe goes, Sills, don't you want a GM to be ruthless and not a nice guy? Yeah. But I also, but Joe, I do want one that's truthful. Joe, I'm not talking about a guy who's not going to go out and make the best deals for your team and do whatever in the best interest of your roster. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about not lying. Tell the player what he needs to hear. You're not good enough. Howie told C.J. Gardner-Johnson, we're not paying $6 million for you. Howie told Hargrave, we're not paying $20 million for you. That's not going to work. Howie told Miles Sanders, we're not paying you $7 million a year. That's not going to work. Okay? That to me is why players know where they stand in that NovaCare Center. It's a prime example of how he's ahead of the curve. And he's a brilliant strategist on putting frameworks together for contracts. And what was even more amazing about the whole deal with Jalen is that he got Clutch Sports to buy in too. Dude, Clutch Sports is a cutthroat agency. They're going to go out and get the top dollar for their guy no matter what it is. They're not going to work with teams. That's not what agencies do. And yet they did. Why? The general manager and the owner made it convenient. And you know why they made it convenient? Here's the no trade. Oh, Jesus. The no trade probably knocked Clutch Sports on their ass. Have you ever given a no trade clause to a player? No. Okay. Let's start there. They probably threw that out right at the beginning of the conversation. Probably threw it out. Hey, we're going to give him a no trade. Probably wobbled them. Amazing. Amazing week for the Eagles. How they're being perceived. Hey, where would you rather play, Dallas or Philly? Where would you rather play? San Francisco? Hey, by the way, how about the 49ers right now? Not now. And you know what's funny? All of a sudden now, here's the narrative. The 49ers are receiving calls. No. The 49ers are making calls to try to dump Trey Lance. They're not receiving calls. They're making calls. But the reports are, well, hey, 49ers are taking calls on Trey Lance. Dude, you're making them. Hey, here's something just to remember on a draft day. Don't ever draft a North Dakota State quarterback in the NFL draft in the first round ever again. If you want to draft him round 5 and down, go ahead. But don't ever draft a guy from North Dakota State that's a quarterback. It'll never work. Hopefully, the lessons that you've now seen will lead that to don't repeat history. Okay? Don't ever draft a guy from that school. Okay. I'm going to make, by the way, we got a mock draft. I'm going to do one more after this one. This is mock number 3. I usually do 4. I'll do one next week before the draft on a Wednesday, next Wednesday. Today I got mock number 3. I'm going to do that. And we're going to do that here in a minute. But I'm going to make the pitch on why you draft a running back. So here is what everyone's narrative is. You don't waste that effort and that draft pick on a running back. Here, let me change this up for you a little bit. Would you draft an all-pro offensive weapon at 10? Would you draft a player who could be an all-pro? I've heard everyone, including Todd McShay, say that every general manager he's spoken to, Bijan Robinson is either the 3rd or the 5th best player in the draft. But you'd rather take Myles Murphy. Why? I hear people now say this. You never want to have a guy like Derrick Henry on your team or a guy like Dalvin Cook because they're not going to be featured. You don't have to feature him. You think you really have to have Derrick Henry have 28 carries on the Philadelphia Eagle offense with those two wideouts and tight end and that O-line? You extend Derrick Henry's career. You extend B.J. Robinson's career. You extend Dalvin Cook's career. How? By not giving him the ball 30 times. And he still gets the same production. That's what this is about. Lowering the reps at running back for Jalen Hurts. Not saying I want Jalen Hurts to have any less yards. I just don't want him carrying the ball 17 times a game. That's what I don't want. I don't want to see him with 200 carries. At the end of the day, okay, end of the day, think of this. Derrick Henry doesn't, you think Derrick Henry would need the ball 28 times to get 175 yards? That guy would have 10 yards of carry behind that O-line. And you extend him. What would Derrick Henry mean to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, you think? Let me ask you this. Does Kenneth Gainwell do anything for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? Zero. Does Boston do anything for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? Nothing. What does Derrick Henry do for A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Devontae Smith? Those windows are wider and bigger, and you have more space to operate. Look at what you have to fear. 2,000-yard wideouts, a 1,000-yard receiver, and a 1,500-yard back who's going to the Hall of Fame, and an offensive line that look like dump trucks. Everybody would be open. Jalen Hurts might throw for 5,000 yards. How does that not make sense? Does a guard help? Yes. Yes. Does Jalen Carter help? Yes. Does Will Anderson help? Yes. The rest of these guys, 5th and 6th round running backs. Why? You got the guys on your team are better than anything in the draft. Why would I draft a running back in this draft that's not better than anybody you have now? Why would I waste my draft picks on people that are lesser talented than the guys I have already? Why would I do that? Because you know why? You don't believe in the guys yet. Anybody who says you should take a running back in later rounds doesn't believe in the guys you have in the backfield. Why would you do that? You got a whole cast of characters and you got a convention back there of running backs. What, you don't believe in them? What, do you need another guy? What, do you need another C student? You got a bunch of C students back there. So you want add another C student. Get this. A+ wideouts, A+ tight end, A+ O-line, A quarterback, C- running backs. Yeah, that makes sense. In a position where the Eagles can own the East again and the NFC, you want to draft Myles Murphy. It's dumb. It's a stupid conversation. It's again, the guard makes sense. Skornowski or Paris Johnson, that it does make sense. But dude, I could get Broderick Jones later in the draft, or the kid from Tennessee, and put him at guard. Okay, it just, you got an all-pro moment here. Hey, let me ask you this. How much did Brian Westbrook, you think, bring to your offense? Or Shady? And by the way, those guys were underdrafted. You got a deal in them. There ain't no Brian Westbrook in the third round in this draft. It's the worst group of players in this draft. And you want to draft another C student. It blows my mind when I hear people on the radio or I see these columns being written that you wouldn't draft an all-pro, but you would draft some dude that's the lesser player when you're in a position to win the Super Bowl. Do you understand that? You're not – look, drafting Bijan Robinson at 10 and you're in a rebuild makes zero sense. Drafting Bijan Robinson in the draft and you're another player away from winning the Super Bowl makes complete sense. I don't care, like I said a couple days ago, if he's a placeholder. If that means the difference between me and winning the Super Bowl, it's worth the investment, whether he's a running back or a placeholder. Well, that's not how the Eagles operate. Excuse me. But the last couple of years, and since Howie Roseman was put in the broom closet, Howie Roseman's a better GM. The greatest thing ever happened to Howie Roseman was Chip Kelly. Yes, Chip Kelly is the best thing ever to happen to Howie Roseman. Okay? He's the best thing ever happened. Why? Hey, man, when you have the game taken away from you and you're not in charge and you don't have direction and you don't have input, and you watch all the mistakes that maybe you made where you didn't listen as much, you didn't trust the people around you as much, you didn't put the proper people in place that you wanted to put in place. All the things that he learned being in the broom closet, he's applied now. Look at Andy. Andy's a better coach today. Mahomes makes him that way. I get it. I'm not saying that McNabb's as good a player. I get that. Still, correct me if I'm wrong, Mahomes wasn't the first player taken in the draft. They actually moved up to get his ass. Okay? Okay? I mean, seriously. By the way, Mike Missinelli will join us at 4:30 Eastern. Then tomorrow, Mark Schlereth from Fox Sports, three-time Super Bowl champion, will join us tomorrow at 3:30. So we got you covered the next couple days here. Howie needed his ski mask in that broom closet. Hey, dude, he's had a great week. Howie Roseman's had a fabulous week. Joseph, Dan, do you like Nolan Smith? I'm going to get to this in a minute. Don't draft an all-pro guy who could help Jalen Hurts. Every single move that you make moving forward has to have, without a doubt, tentacles to Jalen Hurts. His success, his health, everything has to be around your quarterback that you've invested in. Great point, Sills. G guard doesn't really make sense. It's okay, though. A guard's safe because he could be an all-pro as well. At 10, when we have Professor Stoutland at Stoutland University, Bijan's the pick. Marshall, that's not a horrible pick, though. If it's between Johnson and the kid from Northwestern, it's not a horrible pick because it helps Jalen Hurts. Okay? Clint, I know that's not the pick you're looking at. Okay? I get that. Niner, let me say this to you about what's going on with Trey Lance. The only thing that saves John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's ass is if Brock Purdy pans out. And if Lance bombs, you drafted Mr. Irrelevant, it's okay. It's okay. Purdy has to be the guy, especially now that you're dealing him, especially now that you're shopping him on the open market. I wouldn't be surprised if Rand Carthen and John Lynch have been in contact and Trey Lance ends up in Tennessee. I would not be shocked if he lands in Tennessee. I could see Rand Carthen being in that position to put Trey Lance in there. And then guess what? Trey Lance runs the Jalen Hurts offense in Tennessee with Derrick Henry there. I could see that. That'd be a healthy place for him to land because the bell cow is still Derrick Henry there, and that would help him. A running back always helps a quarterback's growth and development when you have a talented player like that and you need to grow your quarterback. Having Derrick Henry there, that would be the landing spot for me, would be Tennessee. Okay? That would be Tennessee. That's how I would look at it. All right. Before I move on to my mock draft number 3, here are the moves. Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Bijan Robinson, or an OG. Okay? And by the way, I'm going to tell you guys something. The Budda Baker price tag's too high. That's not what Howie does. Howie doesn't look for Budda Baker. He looks for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That's the one thing I've noticed about. He looks for Kaiser White. He looks for Hassan Reddick. He doesn't look at the obvious. Because most of the time, the obvious is overpaid. 30th pick and a 7th rounder for Budda. No, I'm out of the Budda Baker sweepstakes. It's too rich. The cap hits are too big for a safety that he doesn't put a value on. Why wouldn't you have kept Gardner-Johnson? I will get Skronowski or Paris at 10, package a 30 and a 2nd and a 3rd for next year, and move back up to get Bijan. It's not that Budda wouldn't fit with the Eagles, and I know he wants to play, but they would have to restructure that contract, and he wants to be one of the higher paid guys. He wants a Bates deal. Eagles aren't going to give a Bates deal to a safety. The price tag is too expensive. They don't put that much of a value on that position. Look at the cap hits that he has with the current deal he has now. Howie looks for Gardner-Johnson, not Budda Baker. He scours the rosters looking for that kind of. Do you know that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a Howie Roseman player? A player that, get this, is drafted by somebody like Mickey Loomis, who has a great great eye for talent. And then he looks on whether or not they're in cap hell or whatever, and how he looks at the roster and goes, they're just not utilizing this guy right. Same as Hassan Reddick, same as Darius Slay, same as Kaiser White. Howie doesn't look at Budda Baker or Honey Badger. He looks at Gardner-Johnson. He looks at Bradbury. Those are his guys. I'll tell you what, I'm starting to get more of a profile on who this guy is. This guy looks at players that are undervalued on other rosters. That's the beauty of him. And that's why that defense is made with one-year contracts. Okay? That's why they're made with one-year deals. Come in and prove it deal. Most of the one-year prove-it deals are where? On defense. Hey, come in and prove it. Okay? And if you don't get your money here, you'll get it somewhere else. That's why I tell you what, if I'm a general manager and Howie calls me about a guy I have on my roster, I'd be looking like this. Why aren't we looking at him more like Howie is? I mean, Mickey Loomis must be kicking himself. So you signed Honey Badger, which was the wrong move because now you're even more in cap hell. And you could have had Gardner-Johnson playing for you in the same position for $837,000 last year. Absolutely right, Sills. Green blood. Thank you. Howie doesn't look at Buda Baker. Now, if Buda Baker was a corner, like Tone says, the premium positions, edge rusher. That's why he looked at Brian Burns. That's why he looked at Christian McCaffrey. A safety? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. If he was cheaper, maybe. But it's not economically, financially responsible for Howie to go out and put that kind of number on the salary cap at a position that the Eagles traditionally don't spend the money at. You know, you guys want me to use common sense on the running back. But now you want to get this. Everyone's doing this now. Sills, you're not thinking correctly on the running back position because that's not what the Eagles do. Well, here's what the Eagles don't do either. They don't spend money and they don't dent their cap with safeties. But yet you guys are telling me that is how they're... Bro, that's not how they act. Look at the actions. Look at the actions of the team. You let Gardner Johnson go. You could have had Gardner Johnson on a 3-year contract at around $6 million instead. The thing went sideways. Why? Howie doesn't want to spend up to $8 million on a safety. But you want to spend $10 million on Buda Baker and all the cap hits against your cap, knowing full well you're putting a good contract together for Jalen and you're putting all these restructuring contracts? Dude, Roseman, that's not a Roseman guy. That is not a Howie Roseman dude, Buda Baker. Has he ever gone into free agency on defense and spent $10 million on a dude with huge cap hits? Tell me, has he? Have the Eagles ever done that? Have they ever gone on the defensive side and got a guy and put him on their football team that had huge cap implications against him? Have they ever done that? Has he ever done that? I'd rather take my shot with Reed Blankenship than sit there and upset my cap. Howie Roseman doesn't make moves for Buda Baker. Why don't you follow your own comments and how you talk about the running back? The Eagles don't value the running back. The Eagles don't value safeties. But yet you think the Eagles are going to spend $10 million a year on a safety. Solid thought process. Makes no sense. The Howie Roseman guys, Kaiser White, Gardner Johnson, Bradbury being released after June. You know when Howie's going to do most of his damage again? Hey, would this not be a fair comment? Howie Roseman is going to probably use the majority of the $20 million in cap space that he has. For what? After June 1. When players are going to be cut for cap implications and because teams have to get to 90 for their July training camp. Same thing, Bradbury and Gardner Johnson were added after June 1. Don't you know the calendar and the NFL calendar? He's freeing that money up for two things, the draft and June 1. He made moves after June 1 with Bradbury and with Gardner Johnson. This dude's going to go shopping again June 1. Do you know there could be probably better play? Well, I won't say better players. When free agency started, okay, there's going to be a good group of players that are going to be whacked because do you know that Dalvin Cook could be cut by the Vikings after June 1 because of his $10.5 million? Dalvin Cook could be on the open market. So could Derrick Henry maybe. Some of these guys that you thought would never be released They get released. Why? Because they don't have the insight that Roseman has on constructing these deals. Every general manager has to be in fear of their owner right now because of Howie Roseman. Now, Howie probably has the best owner in the NFL, along with Bob Kraft, because Kraft lets Belichick do what he wants. That's being reined in more. But Howie lets Howie be Howie. Roseman is trusted by the owner because the owner is looking at Howie. What is the most important thing that Howie is to Jeffrey Lurie? He finds talent and he's financially responsible. You know, he had to convince the owner, give these players on the offensive side, these are superstars. Lane's going to Hall of Fame. Bring back what's-his-name on a 14-4 deal. Jordan Mailata, according to Stoutland, is going to be a centerpiece for us for a decade. The tight end is better than Hurts. Give them more money up front. Help our roster out. And the owner went, okay. Where 99% of the owners would never do that. Owners don't want to pay out money. Here's the bag of money before you earn it. That's what the owner of the Eagles is doing. Here, Jalen, over the next 3 years, here's $170 million, even though you only have 1 year in the bank. That's pretty ballsy of him. But that gives the general manager the latitude. He's financially responsible. Buda Baker's not financially responsible for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's not financially responsible. So wait, you don't want to draft a guy who's going to be an all-pro running back this year, but you'll draft a guy who's going to destroy your salary cap. Get this, Buda Baker would hurt your salary cap more than Jalen Hurts would next year. And you want to put that guy on your team? Hey, just because you did it in Arizona, that doesn't move the needle for Howie. Arizona? You guys have a losing organization there. How do I know how good you are? Okay? Buda Baker is not something that the Eagles do. And by the way, if he was, like I said, if he was cheaper, probably. Yes. Once again, here is the blueprint. Because, guys, telling you who the Eagles are going to draft today on April 19th, when there's 9 teams ahead of you, is preposterous. But what you try to do is get a mentality of what they're thinking and how they're looking. Impact players, Carter and Anderson, are the only impact players in this draft on that side of the ball. They're the 2 best players in the draft. Okay? 2 best. Will Anderson, Jalen Carter. The need is guard. And you're playing a guy in between Kelsey and Lane. That guy's going to have a great chance for success. I would also say this to you. If the Eagles do take a guard, that'll be the 2nd year in a row Cam Jerkins doesn't see the field. The Eagles have a problem at number 2. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but you're getting nothing 2 years in a row out of your 2nd pick. I don't know. Okay, and I get it. He's the heir apparent. I get it. They're preparing it. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but on your roster, it'll be 2 years in a row you don't get anything out of the 2nd pick. Okay? I'm not saying not getting a guard won't help Jalen and the team's success. And Robinson. Okay? So, those are the moves. Now you've got to fill the slots with the names. And I'm going to give you mock number 3 here. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, some of you. Here is mock number 3. Let me move this over. Mock number 3. I do 4 leading up to the draft. I have for 25 years. At number 31. Now remember, the Dolphins don't have a pick in this draft. That's why there's not 32. Because of that whole fiasco with Brady. Kansas City at number 31 takes Kalijah Kancey, Pittsburgh, defensive tackle, to play right next to Chris Jones. They had a little issue in stopping the run. They want to accentuate. They did a nice job last year in their secondary when it came to their corners, especially the kid from Washington. Now they're going to enforce their defense, and they're going to enforce their pass rush. And Kalijah Kancey, University of Pittsburgh, defensive tackle to the Chiefs at number 31. Number 30, Philadelphia Eagles. Select Nolan Smith, Georgia, edge rusher, to play on the other side of Hassan Reddick. By the way, so you know, and if you go back into my history, I'm about 29.8% right on my draft. Okay? I'm about 29.8% right. Number 29. Keon White, New Orleans, edge, Georgia Tech. He's a good-looking ball player. Carl Dunbar really liked him at the combines. Number 28, Michael Mayer, Cincinnati, tight end, Notre Dame. They're trying to enforce that position and trying to get more in that position at tight end for Joe Burrow. Number 27, Buffalo Bills, Zay Flowers, wide receiver, Boston College. Got to get more talent there, and you got to get cheaper there. Stephon Diggs redid his contract. They need more weapons at the wide receiver position. Number 26, Dalton Kincaid, Dallas Cowboys. Tight end, Utah. Just the tight end is becoming more of a focal point in today's National Football League. Look around the league. All the teams that are successful have a really great tight end. And if you don't really have that position covered, because what does a tight end that can catch and block do for you? You don't have linebacker that can cover these guys today. These guys coming out of college, you don't have people that can cover these guys. Number 25, Cam Smith, New York Giants, cornerback, South Carolina. They need to upgrade that position. Pretty good in the front four. Linebacking core, there's nobody in the draft that I would look at that position for linebackers. And they need to get better in the back end. Why? Well, you got CeeDee Lamb. You got A.J. Brown. Remember something. When you're talking NFC East and you're the Cowboys, what's the number one thing you have to stop? A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, the kid in Washington, Devontae Smith. It's a priority in the NFC East now to have corners. Because the wide receivers in the conference and in the division are great. Every team in the NFC East has an A-plus wideout. Terry McLaurin in Washington, CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. The Giants don't have one yet. I believe D-Hop's going there. They got Waller from from the Raiders. He's got to stay healthy. Okay, so they got Waller from the Raiders. And then there's the Eagles. You got to defend the Eagles. Number 24, Brian Breezy, Jaguars. Defensive tackle, Clemson. Last year, they went on the perimeter and the edge rushing. Now they want to come inside, and they want to solidify the run defense. They're building that team correctly, okay? You're putting good components on NTN and Trevor Lawrence. They need to get a little better at wideout, but they just picked up who's the kid from Atlanta that's there now? So they're moving on both sides of the football, and they need to solidify the run defense a little bit. They need to do a better job on their run defense because teams were able to move the ball like the Eagles were a year ago on them. So you put Breezy in the middle there. Plus, he's a local kid at Clemson. Makes a lot of sense. Number 23. This is why they moved Adam Thielen. Jordan Addison, Minnesota, wide receiver, Southern Cal. So you put Jordan Addison on the other side of Justin Jefferson, and if you're able to keep Dalvin Cook in the building, and the things that Minnesota has done on the defensive side in the offseason here, Minnesota would have had a pretty good offseason here. So you add another wideout on the other side of Justin Jefferson and a talented kid like that. So you put Jordan Addison in that Minnesota offense, becomes more prolific. The key is going to be to keep Dalvin Cook, in my opinion. Number 22, Baltimore. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver, TCU. You got to do everything you can to bring Lamar back in the building. So you put Quentin Johnston and Odell Beckham and your tight end. And now all of a sudden, the Baltimore Ravens have a pretty good-looking passing game. And to me, you have to draft a wide receiver at that position at 22 if you're going to still try to entice Lamar to come back and play. Odell Beckham, the tight end, Johnston from TCU makes a nice, enticing offense. I would like to see them do a better job on defense, but right now, this is all about getting the quarterback back in the barn again. Okay? This is all about getting him back in the barn again. Number 21, the Chargers. Jackson Smith Najaba, Ohio State. I don't know what June 1 is going to hold for Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. Okay? But look at the offensive firepower Justin Herbert has. Remember, you have a quarterback that you're negotiating with. You've got to get cheaper at that position too. Why? Because you've got to pay the quarterback. Because get this, I love Tom Telesco. You know what's funny? I hear, hey, Eagle fan said this, that I'm barred from talking like Charger football. Funny, why do they follow me on Twitter then? At Dan Sileo Show. Funny, why does Tom Telesco come on the show? How am I barred from Charger talk? They follow me on Twitter. The only NFL team that follows me on Twitter is the Chargers. The Chargers follow me on Twitter. The GM has been on twice. I don't know. Again, you must be reading the internet again. So they got to get cheaper at that position. Number 20. Hey, Tone, my favorite player. Miles Murphy, Seattle, edge rusher, Clemson. I think he'd be a good addition. They made a move to get a defensive tackle in Seattle. Oh, okay. You're right. No, your word means more than the Chargers. All good, Eagle fan, by the way. Number 19, Osiris Torrance, Tampa Bay. O-line, Gators. Good player. Don't quite think he's quick enough as the other guys. He's a good player, though. He's big as hell, too, man. Big ball player. Number 18, Detroit Lions. Brian Branch, safety, Bama. Boy, I'll tell you this, man. Detroit Lions are doing one whale of a job. And who would have ever thunk it, man, that Dan Campbell is actually turning out to be a heck of a coach. The organization is actually turning it around with Chris Spielman. And everybody that's now there in Detroit, Detroit is doing good things, man. By the way, they're one of my dark horse teams to totally make the playoffs. As a matter of fact, I'll make this prediction. I think they win the NFC North. I think they'll be better than Green Bay and Minnesota. I think Detroit wins the NFC North. I don't have a problem saying that. Hey, who has a better roster right now? Who's got the best O-line in the NFC North? Well, the Lions do. Who's got the best running game? Probably Minnesota and Detroit. Green Bay's good. Chicago's good because of the quarterback. Who's got the best wide? Now you get Jamison Williams back. You know, getting Jamison Williams too, and he really was on a redshirt year last year. Now you got Jamison Williams being at. That's like adding another first-round draft choice to your team. The Lions are in the game now. Number 17, Steelers. They made a lot of moves in the secondary. I got Deontay Banks, Maryland. Cornerback going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why? Look at the QBs you got to face in the AFC. One of the things Tone says all the time, hey, man, premium position. Man, in that conference, you've got to draft premium corners. Dude, even if you fail, keep going back. You've got to stop Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, Lawrence. You got to stop all these, soon Rodgers. You got to stop all these quarterbacks in the AFC. And you better have talented corners who could play press and man. Even if he's a bum, go back next year and get a guy. You got to get cover corners, man. Today's NFL, you can't hit them. You can't mug them. Defenseless wideouts. You got to have talented people back there. That's why it was a priority for the Eagles to make sure they got their corners. Dude, the biggest move on defense this year was getting their corners back. Even though they lost talent in the safety position, getting the corners back has to be here. The restructuring of Lane, getting your corners back, and getting Kelsey. The Hurts contract, he was going to be here anyway. But having all that happen, man, that helped the Eagles so much. And believe me, you know, I thought the team was going to lose so much that I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. Now, this guy has softened the blow. You're still going to be in the conversation here. Number 16, Washington Commanders. Joey Porter Jr., cornerback, Penn State. Washington is a team to watch. Again, I'll make a comparison to you. I think the Commanders remind me a lot of the 49ers in this aspect. They're building a hell of a roster. They just can't get the quarterback right in Washington. Now, if they make a trade for Lamar Jackson, it changes everything. Could they? Maybe. You saw that Anthony Richardson made a visit to Baltimore. Why is that? Well, there's probably some teams that have picked the phone up and said, how much for the player? And I'm talking Lamar. Okay, so that is an indication to me that teams have contacted Baltimore and are interested. And if I were Eric DeCosta, I would do this. I'd wait till draft night. I'd wait and see how the board looked when it got to me here at my pick at 22. I'd wait and see how the board looked and where Richardson and all those guys were going. I'd want to see that. What up, Maniac? So let me recap as we're moving up here. Kalijah Cansey to the Chiefs. At 30, Nolan Smith. Keon White to the Saints at 29. Michael Mayer, Cincinnati tight end, to the Bengals. Zay Flowers to the Bills. Wideout, BC 27. Dalton Kincaid, Dallas tight end, Utah. Cam Smith, Giants cornerback, South Carolina, 25. Brian Breezy, Jags, DT, Clemson. Jordan Addison, Minnesota. Wide receiver, Southern Cal. Quentin Johnson, Baltimore, wide receiver, TCU. Jackson Smith, Najaba, Chargers, Ohio State, 21. Miles Murphy, Seattle, edge, Clemson, 20. Osiris Torrance, Buccaneers, O-line, Gators. Brian Branch, Detroit at 18, safety, Bama. Deontay Banks, Pitt. Pittsburgh Steelers, cornerback, Maryland at 17. Penn State's Joey Porter at 16 to the Commanders, cornerback. Now we move up to 15. Lucas Van Ness, Green Bay edge, Iowa. Played in that neck of the woods up there. Big Ten country. You could put him in a position to be a situational pass rusher. They're a little light in pass rushing in Green Bay. They've got their secondary pretty much solidified. I think there's a lot of talent in Green Bay. Now, with Rodgers leaving, that puts that whole team more in an emphasis to have to try to build in the O-line to have a running game as you're helping Jordan Love develop, and you have to have a good defense on that side of the ball, in my opinion. So what you do is you go defense here if you're Green Bay. At 14, there's a trade. The Philadelphia Eagles trade from 10 to 14 with the New England Patriots to take Bijan Robinson, running back, Texas Longhorns. I believe they trade down and grab him. I am under the belief of what people say in Philly that 10 they wouldn't, 14 they would. Hey, how about this? At 14, say you were a dissenter and you didn't believe in Robinson being taken with the 10th pick. How would you feel about the 14th pick and you picking up a 2 and 3 in this year's draft? An extra 2 and 3 in this year's draft and potentially a 4th rounder in 2024. How would you feel about that? Okay? Wouldn't you feel more comfortable at 14? Number 13, Darnell Wright, Jets, OT, Tennessee Volunteers. Number 12, Devon Witherspoon, Texans, cornerback, Illinois. Number 11, Broderick Jones, Titans, OT, Georgia. Here's where the Eagles would have picked at 10. Patriots, take Paris Johnson, OT, Ohio State. Let's see what Tone says here. At 9, Peter Skornowski, Chicago, OT, Northwestern. Got to help your kid and protect your kid. I'm talking Justin Fields here. Number 8, Atlanta, cornerback, Christian Gonzalez. Oregon, transfer by way of Colorado. Number 7, Will Levis, Las Vegas Raiders. The heir apparent to Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback, Kentucky, via Penn State. Number 6, Jalen Carter, Detroit Lions, defensive tackle, Georgia Bulldogs. So you're going to put Jalen Carter in the middle of that defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson on the perimeter. You get Gardner Johnson in the safety position, and Detroit took Brian Branch to play next to him. I'll tell you what, man. Keep an eyeball out for Detroit. Keep an eyeball out for Detroit. Detroit gets, and they got so pretty soon Detroit's going to have the best D-line in the NFC North and the best O-line in the NFC North. And what does that do? Do you understand the Lions are building their football team the same way the Eagles do? Don't you see the comparisons? Give me the 2 best groupings. O-line, D-line. That's what the Lions are doing. You know, back in the Matt Millen days, they would build teams from the perimeter in. Calvin Johnson's, all them guys that they would draft at wide out, and not from the inside out. That's how you build a championship team. Dude, doesn't it make sense to you? The reason that the Eagles have been so good is because they have built that O-line from the inside out. Hall of Fame center. Guards that are all pros. Tackles that are Hall of Famers. Tight ends that are elite. It's been that way for 15 years. Number 5. Now we're moving into the top 5. Tyree Wilson, Seattle, edge rusher, Texas Tech. So you're going to put Myles Murphy and Tyree Wilson, 2 edge rushers, plus the defensive tackle that you drafted or that you traded for, you gave money to. And look what they've done. They've now created a great-looking front 7 in Seattle, which they were limited at. And why are they doing that? Well, Seattle's going to win the NFC West next year. Do you understand that? Seattle's going to win the NFC West. They're going to win the NFC West with Geno Smith. Number 4, Anthony Richardson, Colts, quarterback, Gators. There's only one place, 2, that Richardson can land on in the first round that makes sense. Baltimore or Indianapolis. By the way, don't be shocked if you see this. Tone, I don't know if you agree with me, but if you trade Lamar Jackson to Indianapolis, you could see Baltimore take Anthony Richardson there at that pick and bring Richardson in on a rookie contract. And now we give DeCosta and Ozzie room to maneuver and build a team like the Eagles have on Jalen's rookie contract. Okay? So keep an eye on Baltimore. Hasn't Jim Irsay been, we need a quarterback. We need a quarterback that's a dual threat guy. We need one of those kind of, has he not been saying that? By the way, there's a reason that I think now that he's been barking like that, Because how does he know who's there at number 4? How does he know who's there at 4? Unless he's going to trade for Lamar Jackson. What did he say, too, at the owners' meetings? I don't have a problem paying $51 million. I have a problem with guaranteed money. Well, who is he aiming that at? I think there's true conversation going on with Lamar Jackson. It has to be. For you to be so blatantly open about how you are going to put a game plan together on getting a quarterback. Shit, dude. I'll give you the 4th pick for Lamar. Wouldn't you? 25-year-old MVP? Shane Steichen with Jonathan Taylor, a great defense. Michael Pittman. I don't know, dude. Indianapolis is in the room. Indianapolis versus Kansas City, Buffalo, the Jags. I don't know, man. I'd be pretty good with that. I'm all right there. Okay? It has nothing to do with Lamar, but do you really think that Irsay would trade for him? Tone, if you'll trade for Carson Wentz, you'll trade for Lamar Jackson. Ask yourself that. If that owner will trade and give up a first-round pick, a contingent first-round pick, and a 3rd, and take the money on of Carson Wentz, do you think he would make a move for Lamar Jackson? That owner is unpredictable. He's unpredictable. That's why I believe he would. And then Steichen would have the version, it would look like the Eagles. Number 3, I think it's too much for Arizona to move off of Will Anderson. He's the best player in the draft the last 2 years. I don't know how you move off that, man, unless you get a treasure chest of draft picks. I don't know how you not take that guy and put him on the edge and have him rush the passer for you. I just don't know how you pass him. I mean, the more film you watch on him, he led college football in sacks 2 years in a row, and he's better against the run. Man, 6'4.5", 255. He's Cornelius Bennett, reincarnated. I just don't know how a guy like Jonathan Gannon just says, you know what? I'll take Miles Murphy. I don't know how you could justify that. That organization also needs an injection of good news. And trading down for a lesser player, like I said, unless you get a treasure chest, you need good news in Arizona. Okay? And by the way, like Yale just said, this kind of covers up the fact that you couldn't utilize Hassan Reddick. I don't know how they pass him up. I don't believe they can. Number 2, I got the Texans taking C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State. And I'll tell you why here in a sec. And Bryce Young, obviously, Carolina, quarterback, Bama. Dude, I'm not taking the lesser player because he's bigger. How many times does size matter in the NFL when it comes to playing quarterback? Honestly, isn't it about talent? What would you rather have, the bigger player or the more talented player? So he lasts 5 years. It's not the bad pick. The bad pick is taking a guy like Carson Wentz. Watch this. Who is the more physically gifted guy, Carson Wentz or Jared Goff? Jared Goff's turning the Lions around. Who is the more physically gifted guy? It was Carson Wentz. Why would you take the bigger guy over the more talented guy? Tone's like this too. And if you start to build a good old line around him in Carolina, which he will, because why? Where was Frank? Where he had the most success? Philly. He knows that. All right. Mike Missinelli's going to join us at 4:30 Eastern time. We're going to get his take on all this. Obviously, Mike knows a million more angles that organization has taken in his time broadcasting and covering the Eagles. Okay? So I want his insight for us. That's going to be at the bottom of the hour. Don't forget tomorrow also at 3:30, Mark Schlereth from Fox Sports will be with us, and I believe Chris Sims is checking in with us also on Friday. So we're pretty packed here. We'll take your thoughts too as we get down to Mike Missinelli at the bottom of the hour. Please hit the like button. Hour 2's coming up. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm Managing Director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Niners and the Vikings are working on a trade for Dalvin Cook. Man, Miami, they need a back for Tua. Why? You got to do everything you can in your mind to protect that guy. He's a hit away from retirement. So you've got to do everything in your power to make sure you do everything to protect that kid. What's the best way to do that? Running back. Could you see Bijan Robinson somehow, the Dolphins moving into the first round? They don't have a first rounder, so I don't know how they're going to make that move, but they're trying to work a trade out to try to get Dalvin Cook down there. Now, Dalvin Cook is a Florida State kid, so kind of makes sense going home, all this and that. But I mean, Dalvin Cook, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill with Tagovailoa, pretty decent offensive line. Dolphins are in the game too. I'll tell you what, man, the AFC East, that's a pretty good-looking division. If the Jets get Aaron Rodgers, so you'll have Aaron Rodgers, Mac Jones, Josh Allen, and Tagovailoa in that division. That's not a bad division. I mean, look at some of the shitty divisions like the NFC South that you have down there with those quarterbacks. That's pretty good, man. The Jets have a talented roster, and with Rodgers, I think you're competitive for a playoff spot. Mac Jones, I don't think they did really a great job with him a year ago because of the shitty coaching he got. Shocking to say in New England. Buffalo is going to be in a 10-year window with Josh Allen. And then the Dolphins continue to keep investing in I'll tell you what, the Dolphins are investing in the offensive side the same way the Eagles are investing in the offensive side. Okay? And, of course, the other news is that the 49ers are looking to shop Trey Lance. Don't believe what you're hearing. So wait a minute. John Lynch hasn't picked the phone up at all. How many people believe this? That the 49er general manager has received phone calls about Trey Lance, and he hasn't picked the phone up one time to see if anyone's interested in Trey Lance. Does anyone believe that? John Lynch is the same general manager that called New England up to see if they were in the market to trade Tom Brady. And you're trying to sell me that John Lynch, the GM of the Niners, hasn't called teams to try to get what a market value is on Trey Lance. Trey Lance is not a first round. I wouldn't give you a 1 for him. I wouldn't give you a 1. Most, I'd give you a 2. Most. You know what the problem is? I haven't seen enough football in him. I mean, was that guy a football player or a track star? I mean, how many games has he played? 10? I mean, how many football games has Trey Lance played in the last 3 years? 4? I mean, honestly, I'm not kidding. How many games has he played? Just doesn't make sense. 4 games? Dude, so he's played 4 ball games for the Niners. 1 game at North Dakota his final year because of COVID. Year before that, he played, I think, 1 season. So in the last 3 years, this guy's played 5 ball games. And you wanted me to give you a 1 for him? And you traded with the Dolphins all those picks to get to the 2-hole to get him? A shitty move. That's a Solomon Thomas move. Completely stupid. Dude, and by the way, when you got the last player in the draft starting over you and everyone wants it and wants him to be the guy, it's time to pack your bags and get the hell out of Dodge. Because you're never going to live up to what happened in San Francisco. He'll never live up to that draft selection. Okay? He'll never live up to that pick, no matter what he does. Like Baker Mayfield could win the NFC South this year. Baker Mayfield will never live up to being the number 1 overall guy picked. He will never live up to that. Yale goes like this. You know what's funny? Him and Zach Wilson. You know what I call Zach Wilson today? Hack Wilson. Hack Wilson is like in workouts now with the Jets. How'd you like to be that guy? No one wants you in New York. The only reason they want you in New York is maybe you could hook him up with his mom. That's the only reason. Hey, your mom's hot. Your game ain't. Dude, when your mom is more popular than you now, you got a problem with the Jets. Seriously, think about the Jets right now. Are you ready for the Jets? Joe Namath, Fireman Ed, and Hack Wilson's mom are the most famous Jets that they've had in their organization. Hack Wilson's mom, Fireman Ed, and Joe Namath. Oh, man. Hey, Big Pickin', if I were the Jets and I was Woody Johnson, I would offer Tom Brady 5% of the Jets to come play in New York. Shit, he was trying to be a percentage owner with the Dolphins. If I was Woody Johnson, I'd go, hey, I'll give you 5% of the Jets. You want to come play? When you're done playing, you'll get 5% of the Jets. Okay? I mean, that's the only way you're going to get him out of retirement is to give him like a percentage of the team. Hey, Tom, here's 5% of the Jets. Come play with the Jets for 2 years. Okay. Okay. You guys need to post super chats on the screen. 85, man. We're okay, man. I mean, look at this guy. He's now a program director. Holy cow, 85. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Sills, any OG at 30 or 62 must be able to play center too. If Cam takes to guard like Dickerson did, we may not want to move him. Looking at Mock or Tipman, both can play up and down the line. Bob, you can get those guys in latter rounds and have Stoutland put his offensive line Zen dust on him. You know what I'm saying? I think anybody that – here, I'll say this to you. I personally don't give a shit what round the Eagles draft an O-lineman. Whatever round they draft him in, he'll be an all-pro. Whatever round they draft him in, 7th, 6th, 2nd, 1st, doesn't matter. Mulata, 7th. Kelsey, 6th. Dickerson, 2nd. Lane, 1. Does it matter? Does it matter what round they draft him in? I mean, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what round the Eagles draft O-lineman in. Those guys make an impact on the football team. And by the way, every NFL team must be looking at the backups. You know what Jack Driscoll's market value is right now? If Andre Dillard got that deal from the Titans, can you imagine what Jack Driscoll's value is on the open market? Hey, could someone tell me what was Jack Driscoll drafted at? What was his draft status? What was his positioning in the draft? What number was he in the draft? And I'll tell you exactly what I think his value is right now. Jack Driscoll, who I called the floating buoy, just holds on, and he just holds on. I mean, he's the reason he's kind of like the Swiss Army knife. Yale goes, he's drafted in the 4th round. Shit, man, if you put Jack Driscoll on the open market, I believe you'd get a 3rd rounder for him. I think you'd get a 3rd rounder for him. Why is that? Well, he was coached by the best O-lineman. So what, he can't start in Philly? Who can? You think there's anybody around the NFL? You think there's any? Let me see. Could Zach Martin could probably start on the Eagle line. But that guy's going to the Hall of Fame. How many O-linemen do you think with the Washington Commanders could start on the Eagle O-line? None. How about the Giant O-line? None. Cowboys have one, Zach Martin. Who else? Do you think anybody on that Kansas City, now that Orlando Brown's off that team, could start in the Eagle O-line? I don't. Okay? You put Jack Driscoll on the open market, you get a 3rd rounder for him. Why? Well, he plays the best unit in the league. He plays with Hall of Famers. And if he doesn't start, so what? It's the Eagle O-line. Like I said to you before, man, here's Tony here. This is how good Stoughton University is. The Chiefs have former Eagles offensive line playing backup, and the Steelers have 2 former Eagle linemen starting in their O-line. Like I said, it doesn't matter. When you guys say, okay, well, the Eagles should pick an O-lineman at 10. Why? Why should they take an O-lineman at 10? When they've had success in every round. First round, second round, 6th round, 7th round. Coaching matters. Evaluating matters. And when you have Jeff Stoutland in the building, think about this for a second here. When you're talking about coaching in the NFL, Josh Allen sucked in college. He was okay. Nobody thought he was going to be this. Why? His college football coach who got blown out was terrible. He got 1 scholarship offer to go to Wyoming. He gets better coaching with the NFL Coach of the Year and Brian Daboll. What happens? He's a $44 million quarterback now. Coaching matters in the NFL more than in college. You think Nick Saban's a good coach? He let Jalen Hurts go. He told Jalen Hurts, I don't want to coach you. I'm going with the easier guy who can read better and is quicker on his feet, and I'm not coaching you. Can you imagine that? It's because he had Tagovailoa behind him. It was lazy. It was lazy coaching. Nick Saban's the greatest college football recruiter. Don't get it mixed up with coaching. Recruiter of all time. Not coach. I got 100 first-rounders on my 85-man roster. I don't know. I got first-rounders everywhere. What makes him different than Jimmy Johnson? Jimmy went to the NFL and won 3 Super Bowls. 2.5, really. So when you're saying take a guard at 10, you took a guy in the second and Landon Dickerson, who's going to be an all-pro, taking over for Zach Martin. You got a Hall of Famer in the 6th, and you got a mainstay in the 7th in Mulata. Wherever they draft a lineman in Philly, he's going to be an all-pro. All right. Guy who has covered this team and knows this football team way better than me, and that is our friend Mike Missinelli, and we bring him in here now with us. Mike, what a week, man. I mean, I got to start it out with the contract here with Jalen. And let me ask you again, your thoughts on this here. Have you seen enough where you're comfortable that the Eagles gave him $255 million over 5 years, seeing him really perform 1 year? Let's see if we could see if Mike's there with us now here, Tone. Can't hear you, Mike. You're muted.
Got it.
There you
All
go.
right. Big Sills, how you doing?
All good, Mike. Appreciate you doing this, brother.
All right, so listen, I know you're taking a lot of heat from the people in Philly. I see it all the time. What are you doing to the people in Philly?
Telling the truth, like you did. Hey, I've learned one thing, Mike. People in Philly sometimes hear what they want to see. Okay? And so, you know, they want you to say something that kind of what they're seeing. And if you don't, and it goes a little off, I see why you and Angelo dominated, because
well,
Mike, you're not controversial. You're just a truth teller.
I thought I was the truth teller. That's why I try to do it. But before I answer the question, because you posed a very good question here on whether he's worth it. So where are you right now on Jalen? Because I've been following you for most of the year. You weren't that keen with him, and you didn't think he was going to do this or that. And by the playoffs, he would have been a liability. Have you flopped on this?
No. And Mike, when people go, have you flopped on it? No. How I always change my opinion is by the player's performance. If the player gets better, hey, well, let me ask you this, Mike. Did you flop on Wentz? Were you sold when they gave Wentz the $100 and some odd $1 million deal, and you thought he was finishing second in the MVP? Did you think he was the franchise quarterback then?
Yeah, I guess I did.
Well, wait a minute, though, Mike. That's not what I'm saying is his performance, Wentz's performance, is what changed the narrative. And so to me, Jalen getting better and better and seeing how he's progressed and what kind of guy he is, I think it obviously, I mean, I'd be an idiot to sit here and go, this kid is, I've actually, Mike, never seen a rise. Going from last year, this time, April 19th, a year ago, were we not both saying this? Is this guy the guy?
I agree with you on that. We had when he first came into the season, he had a lot to show us. Still, we still weren't sold on it. But let's go back to the question. Here's the thing that I've learned, Sills, is that it's not whether you're worth it or not. It's what the going rate is. And he got them to a position where they had no choice. Like, he took them to the Super Bowl. So they had no out on what they were going to have to pay him. And the agent held fast to it. And I think the Eagles think they're getting a bargain here by getting in first. And, Burrow and Herbert will even get more. So, but $51 million AAV, and the highest paid player currently in the league, is pretty substantial. But they had no way out of it. Like, they couldn't say to him, well, listen, you had a great year, but you need another year to prove it to us before we give you that money. That would have been hell to pay for the Eagles. There would have been a revolt from the fans. They knew they had to do it now, and they looked at the going rate and said, okay, let's do this. How they were able to manipulate the salary cap. Listen, I teach sports law, right? I kind of think I know the caps in various leagues. I don't know how they managed to get 4 years at this cap value. I mean, I have to look closer at it, but what they did was a miracle, frankly.
I talked to Bruce Allen about this, and I'm going to tell you what they did. They went on the offensive side, Mike, and it's pretty remarkable on what that owner did. This doesn't start with Howie. This starts with the owner. And here's what Bruce said. How many owners do you know, Mike, are going to go like this? Well, let's give the guy more guaranteed money up front, pay the front end of the contract up, give Lane that huge money on that extension. They even gave Slay more money to re-sign, and they gave Jalen. Jalen's going to make $170 million over the next 3 years. So they front-ended it, which means it gave them cap release and cap relief because the owner goes, you're right, Lane's worth it. Mulata's worth it. Goddard's worth it. The quarterback's worth it. So that's why when you look at the cap numbers, do you know Daniel Jones is going to make more money than Jalen Hurts? And do you know he makes $5 million less than Kyler Murray? It's remarkable, Mike.
Yeah, they got a break in that it was an extension rather than a brand new contract. So they took advantage of that. Now, they're spreading that early money. They can spread it over the length of the contract. So that's where it comes out a little smaller. They're smart about this. They know the salary cap is going to keep going up and up and up. This league is just going to keep going up and up and up. So when they have to count for $60 million on the cap or whatever it is down the road, it won't affect them because the cap is higher. They can manage it. So it was really a smart, calculated move by the Eagles. Now, is he worth it? Listen, I assume he is. I mean,
but don't you think he has to win the Super Bowl to validate it at least?
Yeah, just like every franchise quarterback has to win the Super Bowl. That's what the expectations are. He should listen. I look at him and I go, okay, he's at a risk because of how he plays, but he's so strong that it doesn't seem to affect him like it affects other players. So that worry is very mild for me. Now, will he regress? I mean, I don't know. I think he's learned how to play the position in that 1 year. So I can't imagine he's going to forget about how to play the position. He plays it with a lot of confidence and believes in himself that he knows how to play it. And guys like that aren't fragile. Like Wentz, you could see was fragile. Wentz, let other stuff bother him. This guy's like a pod, Dan. He's like artificial intelligence. If you hear, he's a robot. So
no. And Mike, you know what Phil Simms said last Friday? And I never thought of this when it came to how he plays the game. He goes, Dan, don't you understand? there's more violence and more unpredictability in the pocket than in open field. And I go, so what do you mean? He goes, well, if you're a smart runner, you have more determination on what kind of contact you're going to take in open space. And Jalen, unlike Josh Allen or even Lamar, those guys play with such aggressiveness, Mike. They put themselves in a position to be hurt. Jalen doesn't do that. Chicago game, it was inevitable it was going to happen, something like that. But Phil thinks that he's more responsible in open space, and he knows when to get down, which means to me he sees the game better than those other two guys.
I think he's working on that. I mean, there are times when he'll take on somebody, but I think he takes on somebody because he realizes, hey, I'm stronger than that dude anyway. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't I take him on? I mean, it's a pretty phenomenal thing when he knows his strength and he works at his strength. And he's, is he the strongest quarterback in the league? When you look at him physically, he probably is. Right? So
yeah, agreed.
Listen, 5 years, 6 years, they got him. He's in a position that if you to get another monster contract at age 29, which is just incredible to hear. But they did the right thing. They had to do the right thing. It was the going rate. There was no way out of it. Once Jones got $45 million, what are you going to argue with his agent? By the way, he's not worth 50. Really? That team just gave this schmo $45 million. My guy went to the Super Bowl. And you're going to Jones me like out of $5 million? Come on.
Hey, here's something else too, that I'm sure that I think this is really the golden nugget of this whole contract. Mike, has the Eagles ever given basically, I think they gave Jalen Hurts a guaranteed contract. And when you give a guy a no trade, that means you have complete control of your own destiny and your career. You can't send me to some shithole like the Jets. You can't just go to the Texans and go, you can't do that. The Eagles have so much confidence in him. Mike, there's a value on that no trade. Okay? I mean, to me, how many players have you ever seen had a no trade on their contract, and he has complete control of his destiny? That's how much the Eagles believe in him. That's quite a statement from that organization.
Yeah, but I look at the no trade, Dan, as more like icing on a cake. To trade him at this point with the money he's making, he would have to regress terribly for them to even think about trading him, right? If he regresses and he has a $51 million price tag, I don't know what the market is for him. So I think the no trade looks good on paper, but if you really dig into it, I don't know if that's a factor anyway. They're not going to trade him because they expect him to be at the same level. And if he totally falls off the map, that's the only reason they would think about trading him. And by then, who's going to? I know somebody.
So if he blows his knee out, Mike, next year, you don't think you don't think that no trade has any value
where's
to
the
it?
value? If somebody blows their knee out, is the team going to say, "Oh, I'll take him for $51 million," even though I don't even know if he can play anymore? See, they did it with Wentz. Wentz was making $22 million. Like, this is like at another echelon of price tag. So I don't know. I think it looks more good on paper than it really in reality it is.
Okay, let's get to the draft here. Man, I'll tell you something, man. You guys, some of you guys in Philly, man, are psychotic. You'd rather take Miles Murphy at 10 than, hey, if you could draft Brian Westbrook at 10, or if you could draft Derrick Henry at 10 to put behind Jalen Hurts, would you do it?
Hold on one second. I got somebody knocking at my door, believe it or not, at this point.
Do it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Funny, man. Just let me answer the door and tell them on a live show. Hold on one second.
Okay. Yeah. A little Scotch whiskey. Hey, nothing wrong with a vat of whiskey, man. Hey, sure. Oh, good here. I love that, man. Very good.
Here's what it was.
No. This is what makes you Mike Missinelli, man. I'm all over it, dude.
I'm trying to do this thing in my garage where I'm putting up shelving in my garage. My garage was a mess, so I'm trying to organize it. And my buddy,
are you going to put a studio in there?
No, the studio is here in this little office. the garage, I'm trying to put shelving into storage and stuff like that. And I had a faulty stud finder, Sills. The stud finder lied to me. Like, he told me there was going to be a stud here. I drilled through the wall. It was only drywall. So I called my buddy who's got all this sophisticated equipment. I said, bring over a stud finder. So that's what it was.
Okay, so wait. All right, that's a perfect lead-in, actually. If you had a stud running back at 10 that could be an all-pro and that could help take the carries away from Jalen Hurts, and that you would have an elite back behind him, would you not say you don't feel comfortable at 10? Trade down to 14 with the Patriots. Take him at 14. Doesn't that guy, he's the second-ranked player in the draft, Mike. He's not the 18th. Isn't this about the Super Bowl? You're not in a rebuild.
Yeah, but I read this team from a million miles away. That's not the type of thing that they're going to do. So I kind of put it out of my mind. I tried to zero in on what their options are here. And here's what I think they're thinking, because I pretty much know how Howie and those guys think about where the important positions are. So at 10, if Jalen Carter slides and he's available, he starts 7, 8, they make a move. There's not a question in my mind that they make a move.
He's this guy, Mike.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Mike, I think I've never compared him to this guy. I think he's this guy, Jalen Carter.
Yeah, and I think they know it too. And if he starts to slide, like, they won't go up to 5 to get him. But if he starts to slide, I think they'll make an aggressive move. Other than that, they could sit there and if he's not an option, I think that will take Paris Johnson. That's what they do.
That's not terrible because it helps Jalen.
Yeah, well, that's what they do. This is where they value it. So, I'm not buying the Lucas Van Ness thing. Is it possible that they look at Nolan Smith at 10? Maybe, but he's still a little light in the loafers. I don't know.
I think he's a 30 guy, Mike.
Yeah.
I don't think he's Mike. So
I agree.
So wait a minute. So people fell in love last year with Jordan Davis's combine, the same way they're falling in love with Nolan Smith's combine. And both guys, last year, Nolan Smith played 8 ball games. I don't know, man. I mean, one thing I'm noticing about these Georgia guys, they're not awful productive. I mean, they're not awful productive.
Here's what they could do also. If Paris Johnson and they can't get Carter at 10, I think they trade back. I think in trading back, they fulfill those middle round draft picks that they don't have now. And then maybe use those to package with pick number 30 if Bijan Robinson slides and he's available at 20. That's what I think they could possibly do.
I think Dallas wants him at 26.
Yeah, and so maybe they're enamored enough to do that with the running back, even though I don't even think they would do that. But trading back, they can get a starting cornerback probably for depth if they trade back from 10. So I don't know. I think this is a very fluid draft for them, and they're just going to keep their eyes on how the board's moving. And if Carter slides, they're going to pounce.
Here's what I have been trying to tell folks. Everyone looks back at Emmitt Smith's career and they go, well, Emmitt had the better old line than what Barry had. And I'm like, that's not true. I was in Dallas. And everyone's like, wait a minute, Sells. Look at that line he had. Well, Landry had that line too. That he had Tooney for 2 years. He had Gogan for 3 years. He had Nate for 4 years. I mean, he had Crawford Kerr for 5 years. Who made that old line elite? Emmitt. You have an old line, Mike. Why not put – personally, Mike, the guys you have running the ball, they're dudes. They're not elite.
Yeah, I agree. I think they have to upgrade. I totally agree with that. And Bijan Robinson, I love him. But their mindset is such that they don't love like other people love. So like the running back, it's preposterous to them to take a running back that high.
What do you think it's more likely, Mike, that they make the move at 10 or 30?
I think it's more likely they make the move at 10.
I agree.
Because I don't think that either those two guys that we talked about earlier, Paris Johnson and Carter, are going to be there. So I think that gives them no choice but to trade back because they're enamored with they don't like having no draft picks in the middle here.
Who do you think has more pressure on him going into this year, Brian Johnson or Sean Desai?
What is that? See, this is an underplayed story. And I know we talked about it when it happened, that it's really tough to adjust to new coordinators. I think the offense will be fine with Brian Johnson. And I think that's because of his connection with Hurts. I think they've got enough talent, except for a running back. The offensive line is pretty good. Desai is going to be an interesting thing because everybody hated Gannon, even though his defenses were very efficient. Right? Boy, what he did was efficient, whether you liked his lack of aggression or not.
Agreed.
And so Desai, I think, has a lot more pressure on him. They don't have linebackers here. I mean, they're still scrambling with the linebackers. They kind of need a safety. Like, I don't know if they're solid at safety. The cornerbacks are fine. They need to get pressure from the outside, which is still debatable here. So Desai definitely has more pressure on him.
How about this too, Mike? You know, you'll correct me if you think I'm wrong on this. People keep throwing the Buda Baker out now, and I'm like, that's not a Howie guy, man. Howie looks for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He looks for the Kaiser Whites. He scours the rosters that have really good evaluating general managers and front offices and looks for underplayed players. Think about, I mean, look, Mickey Loomis, he's a good talent evaluator down in New Orleans. What did he see? He saw an $837,000 corner that they used in nickel, and they said, why don't we bring him up here? He made him a $6 million guy. Kaiser White now $5.5 million. An undrafted free agent linebacker, TJ's now making $7 million. I mean, do you agree? And plus the cap hit. Mike, do you know if they brought Buda Baker in, he'd be more of a cap hit to the Eagle cap over the next 3 years than what Jalen Hurts would be with his thing. Am I right when I say that? That's it. It's not that they wouldn't want him. It's that it's awful pricey, and they don't really value that safety position that much.
No, they don't, and they acquired a guy, and they think that Blankenship can play, but I don't know if they can or not. And Nakobe Dean, they're putting him into a big spot. I didn't really get the impression they were that enamored with him last year. So there's some questions there, and Josh Sweat, is he going to be is he going to get more heat on the quarterback than he did last year? I mean, what's Cox going to do for him? What's Brandon Graham going to do for him? I think they need somebody they can rely on, and that's maybe the draft where it comes in with the draft.
What's your biggest concern now with where they are on April 19th? By the way, I still think there's some shopping to do after June 1, because as you know, that's almost like a 2.0 version of free agency, because cap casualties happen on June 1. That's how they got Bradbury. And that's how you're able to kind of go in the market there and look and see if guys are open because of money issues. What's your biggest concern right now with them trying to repeat as NFC champions?
Well, defensively is always a concern for me.
Let me throw this at you, Mike. My biggest concern is Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis. Are they going to be players, or are they going to just be pretenders? Because right now they're show ponies.
Nakobe Dean worries me a little more than Jordan Davis does. I think Jordan Davis is going to be fine. I think with increased playing time, I think he's got a chance to come into his own. The depth positions, they lost two guys that I really thought were really key to them last year, and that was Hargrave and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And they were the two priorities for me. Now, I know they couldn't have matched what Hargrave got. I get it. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think, is a mistake. And I think they're going to, that might hurt them because he filled in a lot of roles for them. And he's, listen, he's kind of a nut, but I liked the way he played. So I'm going to be looking to see if they can replace those positions on a consistent basis. These guys have to be consistent. They're going to throw in there. Blankenship had moments. But is he going to be a consistent player every down for this team in every game?
I'm going to leave you with this question, and this is the final question for you here. At the end of the day, when Jeffrey Lurie was making his decision on who to put his trust in, Howie Roseman or Doug Peterson, the owner chose right, didn't he?
Yeah. He did.
He chose right. I mean, I was on the other end. I thought that was the wrong move, Mike, to fire a Super Bowl coach who won 2 division titles, an NFC championship, and brought a Super Bowl to your city, going up broad with this guy, and all of a sudden you fire him 2 years later, and you stick with the guy who was in the broom closet for the Chip Kelly years. He comes out of the broom closet a better general manager. All that true?
Yeah. Howie wasn't going to go anywhere. He was kept in storage for Jeffrey Lurie.
He was on layaway, Mike.
I had lost faith in Doug Peterson. That year was a bad year. And that 4-win year. And the more I looked at Doug Peterson, the more I thought it was just lightning in a bottle. They won that Super Bowl, not his expertise. So I wasn't that hurt that they got rid of him. And now who they were going to bring in, I was a shock. And that surprised me more than anything that this guy got it together that quickly with the team to the point where they get to a Super Bowl.
I want to sneak one more in on you. Let me sneak one more, Mike.
Okay.
Before you go back to your cabinets here, let me do this here. Here's why I don't know. Now, the Eagles just signed a wide receiver from Atlanta to potentially compete against Quez. But follow me here on this. I think Quez makes more sense to stick with him, because what makes more sense and what would make me have more fear as DC? A guy that has 5 or 10 catches like Zach Pascal, or a guy that runs 4.2. See, to me, the illusion of the guy running the 4.2, Mike, that frightens me more, and I got to game plan that more than I do a guy with 55 catches.
You're totally right. We talked about this a lot during after doing post-game shows with Seth and Derek Gunn and Devin Caney. They ran a lot of fly patterns with Brown, and where they should have been running them with Quez, but Quez lost them. Whatever he was doing in practice, he wasn't competing. He wasn't competing for balls, and they saw that. And coaches see that, and they lose trust. So he's going to have to prove a lot that he can be a tougher receiver than he showed last year. Because you're right, Zach Pascal it does not give them as good a weapon as Quez Watkins, but they were so frustrated by his inability to compete on balls that they just lost faith in him. So, he's got a chance to lose his job unless he turns into a different Quez.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, I figured out why you and Angelo destroyed that market for all those years. It's just too easy, dude. Mike, it really is. I mean, you say anything opposite of something, it's just not going to work for people.
I love my people here in Philly, and all I tried to give them was what I thought was the honest truth. And if it was contrary to what they thought, I wanted to engage them. Like, okay, why do you think that? Well, look, maybe you should look at this other side. That was the fun of Sports Talk Radio in Philly.
It is.
It's
the banner. We can't do that anymore in radio because that shit's gone away now, Mike. But
I know.
When you could go back and forth, to me, I never liked the yes guys calling my program. I always liked the dudes that go, you're out of your mind. You have no understanding of what you're talking about. I can't believe you actually played. And that's the guy I like. You know what I mean? Those are the guys that I like. By the way, I do believe it's one of the most intelligent cities I've ever spoken sports to, because I'll tell you what, they'll call you back and go, hey, on March 10th, you said this bullshit about this guy here. No, remember now, here we are, right?
The biggest wrestling match I ever had with the people here was I didn't like Furkan Korkmaz from the jump. And whenever he would have a game where he would make a couple threes, and I would get pounded. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. And I just sat there, okay, all right, we'll see. He's a lost soul now. He's not even an entity in the NBA. So people in Philly, I was right about Furkan. At least throw me that bone.
Hey, absolutely. And Mike, I love how people now have flipped on Harden. Hey, Harden's an assist guy. Hoss, you didn't bring that guy into Philly to be an assist guy.
Yeah.
Don't flip-flop on him. That's not why you brought him to Philly, is to be an assist guy for Embiid.
Listen, Dan, I'm watching Seth Curry the other night. Now, he's pretty much beat. He's beat up, right? He's done. I mean,
A dynasty's
when
over.
when they made that trade, the people here lamented the fact that they lost Seth Curry and Andre Drummond. I'm going, are you people nuts? What's going on? Are you kidding me? Seth Curry and Andre Drummond?
Hey, what do you make of Josh Harris buying the Commanders?
It's unsettling. I don't know why.
Why is it unsettling?
Well, it's funny because we were talking about this on my podcast the other day. It doesn't feel right to have an owner divide his loyalties, because it's like it tells the fans that they're not that this guy's just here to spin the corporate wheel, and he's not really personally invested. We want our owners to be personally invested in a team. He looks at it, they're chess pieces to him. It's a different type of thing. I'm not saying it's wrong, because this is what guys do. Venture capitalists, they know they're not going to lose any money. Sports teams are the way to go. But you divide the loyalties. It's like, you're going to put some of your energy into the Jersey Devils, and now you're going to put a lot of energy into the Commanders. Well, what about our Sixers? That's all we care about. We don't care about your damn Devils and the Commanders.
Do you think the owner of the Eagles is the greatest owner in team sports history?
No. No, I can't. I go back and forth with the lawyer. I can't warm up 100%. I don't know what it is, Dan. I don't know what it is. I've never been able to warm up 100% on him. But
why? Tell me. Please educate me.
I don't know. It's just a feel. Sometimes you get a feel, and you go, I don't know about this guy. I don't know. Like I can look at Middleton, and I go, hey, he looks like a regular guy who's invested in his team's fortunes. He wants to spend money.
Philly,
he's done nothing wrong. He's done nothing wrong. So I probably have a misguided opinion, but I like him 80%. How's that?
That means you like him Monday through Thursday.
I guess. I don't know what it is, but in general, rich guys bug me. So I don't know.
I'm kind of there with him a little bit, Mike. It's always a great lesson in Philly sports with you, man, because, again, I had a conversation the other night with Angelo, and he's like, and he said the same thing that you put on the text to me. He goes, you're killing it. And I was like, hey, man, Mike just sent that. He goes, keep it up. And I go, yeah, I take a lot of shit. I go, and by the way, if I say anything, it's like you guys. People write columns. They get pissed off. Our writers get mad.
Well,
if you don't put a quote right, somebody goes crazy on you. I'm like, what's going on?
I tweeted out that I was coming on your show.
What?
And somebody tweeted back. I said, what do you want? I said, he's been hating a lot on Philly. What do you want me to ask him?
I don't hate on Philly.
I was just playing with him because I wanted to get a response. And one guy wrote back, ask him if he has CTE.
Probably do.
You're healthy, right?
Yeah, well, I probably have CTE, not from football. My wife throwing me on my head. You have to understand, there's more physical violence in I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding there. And Mike, listen, I appreciate it, man. And by the way, it's not hating. It's just telling the truth. I mean, bro, when you've got a football team and you're this close to winning the Super Bowl, I'm not drafting Miles Murphy at 10.
Listen, you're not hating.
You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
I know
again.
You're not hating, but when you say something that's contrary to what they really believe is true, then they give you that label. You're hating. It can't be that maybe you're right, or it can't be, well, maybe I should listen to the opinion and reevaluate it. But it's like it's not what I think, so he's a hater.
Mike, I'm always here for you, man, and I really appreciate you. We go back and forth so much. And by the way, I plaster still to this day the book that you wrote on Jerome and I. I will always, and by the way, too, your Penn State guys, like, what is his name? Radich, who was the center, Wisniewski, and the only guy I don't talk to, I will not talk to Schaefer. Okay, but DJ and all them guys, okay, he sucked the quarterback, and I killed him on the first. I was never going to talk to him. But Shane Collins, a friend of mine, and every time I go, oh, yeah, man, we had such a good game. And they'll send me the ring, and I'll go like this, you dicks.
Hey, man,
That was such a great night, though, Mike. I'll never forget it because it's the greatest night, in my opinion, in college football history.
You proud playing with that team and in that game. It was a special game. That's why I wrote a book on it. But guess what? Well, I don't know. Can I make a prediction that they're finally going to contend for a national championship next year? Is that possible? The Penn State Nittany Lions, are you feeling it?
I think Penn State has a better chance than getting back to where they were. To me personally, I think James Franklin, I think they can recruit. I don't know if they can develop. Okay.
They've got 3 premier skill players this year, brother.
Well, but they let the kid from Penn. They let the kid go to Kentucky, Mike. They couldn't keep Levis.
Listen, they're starting. This kid is phenomenal, and he's gonna really impress this year.
I think. Look, I think they had a really good bounce back year this year. And by the way, that kid Joey Porter, you know what Manny says about him? He ain't a corner.
Really?
He thinks he's a safety.
Oh boy.
He thinks he ain't fast enough.
Well,
That's
see.
between us.
I like the way he plays, so we'll see what happens.
No. I do too. But I think he's a slot corner kind of guy.
Maybe.
I think you drop him in there, and I think he's one of those guys that you play back there because he gets kind of lost out there sometimes in coverage, but he's a hitter. And so to me, hitters are in that safety slot position.
The Eagles had him in. He looks like C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
No, I think he's good. I think he could play that Gardner Johnson position.
Well, maybe if they trade back, that's the guy that they'll get.
I think Washington's getting him.
Well, that's a possibility.
I think Washington. Mike, I appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
I'll talk to you.
You got it. That's my friend Mike Missinelli giving us an education there. Please hit the like button. Hour number 3 already? Holy cow. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messon Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
My name is Dan Sileo, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Football Show. Appreciate you coming aboard hour number 3. Thank you guys for stepping in with us. We're going to reset here a little bit. Some of the stuff that Mike said. I would say this to you guys that I think the board is going to tell us a little bit more on what direction. You know, Mike doesn't believe that they're going to take the running back because that's just not. And again, I get it. I get it. I understand it. Okay. But they're so close. They're so close. Look, OG probably makes sense. But would you really take an offensive lineman at number 10? Would you really do that? I just can't see it. I just can't see that. Them doing that at number 10. I believe that they would trade down from that. Okay, I do. I just believe that they would trade down because the position that right now they're in, they're so close, they feel. And with the position that the NFC is in, doesn't it make sense right now for that football team to do this? Doesn't it make sense to go for it? I mean, look, going for it, Budda Baker does not make a ton of sense for the Eagles here. Why? It's too expensive. For a position, they don't value them. They had a guy. Now, would you draft Joey Porter and put him at safety or nickel corner? Would you do that? Tyler goes, Sills, should the Eagles draft Will Anderson? It's going to cost you a ton of money. It's going to cost you a ton of draft equity that you don't really have this year. Now you have a ton of it next year. And would Jonathan Gannon give up Will Anderson? For me, giving up Will Anderson, dude, that is a lot to give up for that player. You have to really want him. And I don't know the Eagles really want Anderson that bad. I think they would rather have a player fall to them than have to go up and get him. Now, look, like I said, there's just a few players that are impact guys. Anderson, Bijan, Paris, Johnson, the old lineman, Tyree, and Jalen Carter. Those are your guys that are going to be impact guys right now for you. And I, like I said in the first hour, the bottom line here is Arizona needs good news. I mean, they have not had good news. They fired their coach. They fired their general manager. Their front office is in ruin. Their owner's under investigation. At the end of the day, they don't have any good. And if you trade out to take an old lineman or Tyree Wilson, I don't know that helps the room. You know, Arizona is different than Philadelphia. They need to sell season tickets. Philadelphia could have nobody playing, and they're going to show up to Lincoln Financial, no matter who's in the building. Okay, no matter who's in the building. Greasy goes protect Hurts. Protecting Hurts is Bijan Robinson. And protecting Hurts is Bijan Robinson or a guard. The defensive side of the football, that doesn't help them. Okay? It just doesn't help them. We need defensive tackles too. Yeah, but Donnie, getting a defensive tackle would have to be some. That guy Mozzie Smith, to me, I think he's a third rounder. I don't think he's a first round pick. I think he's a third round guy. Starter, 6'3", pretty smart, explosive. I think he's a good ball player. I don't think he's a first round pick, though. Yacht goes stop with Bijan. Okay, Yacht, who do you want? Let's see who Yacht would draft at 10. What would you do, Yacht? What would you do to help your football team? And get this, you know what you want to know too? You're adding a football player that's also going to be your fourth best player when it comes to catching the football in your passing game. You have every single person saying that he's one of the top 3 players in the draft, but you don't want him. Who would you draft over the third? Hey, who would you take over the third best player in the draft? Who would you guys take over the third best player in the draft? Who would you take? What player would you take over the third best player in the draft? I'm just curious. Will McDonald? Who's that? Who's Will McDonald? Who's Will McDonald? Never heard of him. Carter? So you want to move up, right, Finnis? So you want to move up to get Carter. You're either going to have to move up to 9, Detroit at 6, Atlanta, maybe even to Indianapolis. So you're moving up. Okay. Who do you want instead of Bijan? Give me a guy. The positional value is why it's a waste of resources. That's the stupidest comment of all time. The position value? So you don't put a value on 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns that you don't have now in your backfield? Look at what Lynx just said. The positional value. So you don't think there's a value on 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns? How about this one? If you knew that a running back at number 10 could give you 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns, would you take him? Yes or no? Would you take a guy who's an offensive guard that could make your O-line even better? By the way, a running back like Robinson not only helps your wide receiving core, but it helps your O-line. Most O-linemen would rather run block. The positional value. Did you hear what Link said? The positional value. Boy, I'm looking for the best players. Not the 7th best offensive guard or the 5th best offensive guard. I'm looking for the best player that could help my offense. Who helps your offense more? An offensive guard? Who helps your wide receivers and quarterback more? A guard or a guy who could be an all-pro player? So some of you would draft Paris Johnson or the guy from Northwestern. Let me see something here. What was Northwestern football's record last year?
Northwestern is in 7th place in the NCAA Big Ten Conference.
They won one ball game?
With 1 win and 11 losses for a winning percentage of 8%.
Hold on for a second. What was the record for Northwestern football in 2022?
Northwestern is 7th in the NCAA Big Ten Conference.
So the guy you want to take at number 10 was on a 1-11 football team. Okay. You might as well just draft a guy from North Dakota State. He was on a one. Yeah, hey, and stop with that Pacheco thing. You don't have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, dude. You don't have Mahomes. You making it sound like Jalen could play with a 7th rounder? Well, you're going to find out because you got a cast of nobodies back there. I don't care what anybody says, and I'm glad Mike agreed. That running back core you have is dog shit. Those guys ain't that good. There's nothing there. There's no talent there. Well, it's some. It's marginal. It's marginal talent. It's marginal talent. Who? Yacht? Who? Robert? I mean, you're going to draft a guy, Peter Skornowski, at number 10, who played on a 1-win football team. So you're telling me he's Joe Thomas, but yet he played on a shitty college football team, which means he had no impact. So, hey, by the way, it must be the team and not him, too. Oh, I see. Okay. Boy, tell me that's not a gamble. I'm going to draft a guy off the worst team in the Big Ten with edge rushers that aren't that hot in that conference. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, very good. The kid in Kansas City was good. Okay, but I wouldn't consider the Big Ten world beaters. Okay, I wouldn't. People, you talk about being delusional. I'll say. Penny, $6 a pop. Penny sucks. Failure. Bust. What do you mean, good point? Yeah, here's Rashad Penny's career. 2 games, 18 carries. Let's take a look. That's a good one. So you're going to rely on this. Hey, Tone and I have already talked about this. Rashad Penny stats. So let's take a look at the first-round draft choice. Let's see. Has he ever played a full season? That'd be no. He has 11 starts in 5 years, and he was a first-rounder. Yeah. He has a total of 337 carries. Let me see something. So he has a total of 337 carries in 5 years. How many carries did Derrick Henry have last year? Let's see. Derrick Henry had 340. Derrick Henry had more carries last year than what that guy's had in his entire 5-year career. Yeah. Low mileage. You can't get the guy out of the barn. It's a broken down horse. But it's a good draft. It's a good pick because you know why? Hey, you hope he plays 8 games. Seriously, you hope Rashad Penny plays 8 games. 40 carries a game. Hey, Yale. Again, that guy had more carries in 1 year than Rashad Penny's had in half a decade. Okay? The new receiver, by the way, here you go. I cannot say his name, and I'm not going to try. Well, I'll try. Eagles just signed wide receiver Olamide Zacchaeus. He had a career year in Atlanta with 40 receptions, 533 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He was brought in to challenge Quez Watkins. Okay. Sure. All right. Another guy you add to the roster? Okay. It's not a needle mover. Ola Lamide. Okay, sure. Never heard of him, but okay. It's all right. Doesn't mean anything. Tease, appreciate it. Hey, let's see if the new guy frightens defensive coordinators, and I hope he does, man. Greg says this. If we get Jalen Carter, I'm going to smoke a cigar with Philly 500 and Howie Roseman. Hey, Greg, you get Jalen Carter, you win the offseason, the restructuring, getting your corners back. Okay? Arthur goes, the guy that they brought in is a Philly kid. Great. I hope he plays. I hope he makes the team. Just because you traded for him doesn't mean he makes the team. I'll be shocked if Rashad Penny's on the team. Because you have such a talented group of guys back there with Gainwell in Boston. I'm pretty sure that, you know, I mean, it's just super talented. If we get Carter, I'm smoking a cigar with DJ. Carter's. If Carter falls to 10, you know what, too? I'll tell you something. I wouldn't be if you're the Bears. Would you take Bijan Robinson at 9? Would you take Robinson at 9? Take some of the running heat off of Justin Fields? Would you put him at 9? See, look, personally, when it comes to Carter, I think you have the best intel of anybody in the NFL draft. The guy who recruited him is Tracy Rocker. The guy two guys who played with him, you have the best intel you could possibly have. All you have to do is ask those 3 guys, what do you think of the kid? You think the kid's worth the 10th pick? And if those guys go like this, he was a great teammate. I love playing with him. He's a force. He's a little this. He's a little that. At the end of the day, Tracy Rocker is going to have as much. If Jalen Carter's there and they pass, you'll know why. Because Tracy passed on him. It'll come down to Tracy if he's there. Tracy's known that kid since he was 17 years old, 18 years old. So, I mean, you can't have a better guy. That would lead me to believe, would they jump up to 9 or up to Detroit to get him? If Rocker wants him that bad and says he's that much of a game changer, I would have to say that, hey, Yale makes a spectacular point. Remember something, the defensive coordinator of the Georgia Bulldogs was interviewed for the DC job. And there had to have been conversation. Now, I don't know if that news came out about the accident yet at that time when they were looking at him for DC. But there was probably word around that there was an incident at Georgia that they probably were privy to. Because remember something. Remember what goes on during this time, too, when it comes to evaluating players. You put a list down about 25 guys that you're interested in drafting for yourself. Do you know what they'll do? Not only do they have the talent scouts looking at the players and evaluating them, what they'll have is their internal security then and NFL security going and doing background checks on these guys. They'll do a background check on you. And what they'll do is they'll do a legal check on you. The NFL is very good with this. Okay? They're very good with this. Okay? So they've probably done their due diligence with Carter. And to me, and know this too, when Yale says this, hey, by the way, at the end of the day, I would say this to you. if an organization is cool on a player, that to me is a sign that the player is really high on their list. Because what you don't want to do a week out from the draft is tip your hand. You don't want anybody to know what your strategy is right now. You're not going to let anybody know what you're thinking. You want to go further away from the player that you truly are coveting in the draft, and you don't want them to know what you're thinking. I mean, this is why some organizations tip their hand prior to getting into the draft. I mean, the Colts have tipped their hand. They want a quarterback. Whether it's going to be a veteran guy or whether it's going to be in the draft, they want a veteran guy. So to me, that's not a bad sign that the Eagles have. If someone told me, well, the Eagles aren't really hot on him right now, well, I would think they're really hot then. Because we're in the land right now of lying. Okay? Bijan numbers in college are for 3 years compared to Penny's. Bro. Big 12 versus Mountain West? Really? You're kidding, correct? Big 12 versus Mountain West. Playing Utah State, San Jose State, Arkansas State. Rashad Penny's had 5 NFL years. 5 NFL years, and he's done shit with it. Don't you see? It's why they drafted Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. They had enough, and he couldn't beat Chris. He couldn't beat that kid Chris out. He couldn't beat him out. He couldn't beat a 6th rounder out. Rashad Penny has been a failure, as has Marcus Mariota. You got 2 first-round flops on your team. Now, again, they're in different roles. Mariota's in a backup role, and probably Penny's in a backup role too. These guys aren't frontline guys. They're not frontline guys. And what's going to happen is Penny's going to wow you. And then he's going to get hurt, and he's going to go, dude, after 5 years, you are who you are. Nothing's going to change. Well, Silsey averages 6 yards a carry. For what? 4 games? That does nothing for me. How does that guy's career excite you? With 11 starts in 5 years. How does that excite you? Honestly, how in the world does that excite you? Okay? Anthony, Sills, what did you do with your career? Penny was 10 times better. Okay, congratulations. So, what's the point? I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about a guy that you're thinking is some sort of superstar back. What does that have to do with Rashad Penny, who's on your team right now, Anthony? What does that have to do with anything? You think Ricky Williams was a flop? You think Priest Holmes was a flop? You think those guys were flops? Hey, Alabama's had flops. And you guys like that guy Gibbs? How do you know he's not a Richardson? I think Mark Ingram was solid. I don't think it was spectacular. What? I think Najee Harris is a good-looking back. The best back he's ever had, obviously. 11 starts in 5 years is wild. And Breed, you want to hear something else? They moved up to get him. They moved up to get him, Seattle. Okay? So is that a better career than Penny? Oh, Lucius. At least that wasn't a first-round disaster like he was. And now you got Leonard Fournette was not a flop. You think Leonard Fournette was a flop at LSU? And you think he was a flop in the NFL? Really? You think Leonard Fournette was a flop? Leonard Fournette's stats. Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette, first year in the league, had 1040. Second year, 439. Third year, 1152. But here's the key down here. Receiving. Oh, excuse me. That was receiving. Here's receiving for Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette had 73 catches last year for the Bucs. The year before that, he had 69 catches. His last year in Jacksonville, he had 76 catches for 522 yards. So in the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years, Leonard Fournette has averaged 70 catches. And let's see here. Rushing. So in the last 5 years, Fournette has averaged over 1,000 yards in total offense. You think that's a bust? Averaging over 70 catches a year for the last 5 years and 1,000 yards. You don't think that any helped win a Super Bowl? That's pretty crazy. Bust? I don't think bust. Did he live up to the pick? Probably not. Probably not. In Fournette's 6-year career, he's had 4 seasons of over 1,000 yards in total offense. Tell Arthur to sit this one out. Penny's had 2 starts a year in 5 years. And he's comparing him to Leonard Fournette. Okay. That's all you need to know about certain people. They try to make their narrative right. That's not what I do. And by the way, do you see what I said to Mike? Mike goes, so have you flopped on Jalen? I go, did you flop on Wentz? He goes, I guess I did. It's okay. It's not flopping. The player's production and performance changed the narrative. That's what I try telling people. It's not flopping. Players go up and down like the stocks you see on the stock exchange. It's not a flip-flop. Did you flop on Jalen? Well, did you flop on Wentz? Isn't that fair? Everyone in Philadelphia was sold he was the guy. He had an MVP season too. Actually, he helped win a Super Bowl. And his performance went the other way. Well, the player's performance went the other way. What you'll get is you'll get people acting like Bill Polian. You're trying to change the narrative. No, I like Jalen from day one. No, you didn't. Don't lie like that. You don't have to lie in sports talk. That's a beautiful thing about it. This is not politics where people lie to get a point across or to get a narrative across. This is not politics. You don't have to lie. People lie in political talk. I never said that. Yeah, you did. Okay? Yeah, you did. Hey, I never gave Senator Byrd his eulogy. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Sorry, Joe, but you did. That's what your show is? Players performing and getting better or worse. Okay, sure. Okay, sure. I agree with that. But we knew that the Eagles saw something we didn't early on. DJ, how can you say that? He was drafted to be a backup quarterback, not the starter. You had just given the guy a contract extension. Carson Wentz was one of the highest paid players in the league. Jalen Hurts was brought in not to start. He was brought in as a backup. When you're not drafted in the first round, you're not brought in as a starter. You're brought in as a back. Tom Brady. Get this. What people don't get. Yeah, think of this. How many people think Tom Brady was drafted to be the starter? How many people believe he was drafted to be the starter in New England? Why was Tom Brady drafted? Do you guys know why Brady was drafted in the 6th round? Why was Brady drafted? Okay? Brian goes, who is your source down at the NovaCare Center? Well, one of my former teammates, Tracy Rocker's there, and Jeff Stoutland was a Miami Hurricane offensive line coach and an interim head coach at the University of Miami. Any other questions you want? That's right, Yale. They had just given Drew Bledsoe a $117 million contract extension. They paid him $18 million signing bonus. Brady was brought in to be the backup to Bledsoe. Bledsoe gets hurt against Mo Lewis on a Monday night game. Takes him out. Brady takes over and never looks back. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. By the way, remember what happened also that year in the playoffs? Brady got injured. Bledsoe was put back in. He beat Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. Don't you remember what the narrative was? Is Belichick going to go back to Brady, or is he going to stick with Bledsoe? And Belichick went with Brady. And he went back to Brady. And they had so much confidence in Tom Brady. What did they do the next year? They traded Bledsoe in the division, not only in the conference, in the division to the Bills. You can have him. They told the Bills in their division, here's Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe was not a bad quarterback. He was pretty good, actually. I like Drew Bledsoe. I kind of compare him to Vinny a little bit, a little better version than Testaverde. Drew was a good ball player. But the Patriots were so sold on a 6th round pick. Plus, what else did it do? It gave the Patriots cap latitude to be able to do this. Brady's on a 6th round contract. They were able to build the roster with a guy making $1.5 million a year. Or maybe not even $1 million. And versus paying a guy $17 million. That's how they built the dynasty. They built the dynasty because they found a guy in a latter round. That's how the Eagles have built their team. The Eagles have built their team around a quarterback that was a 2nd round pick. Seattle built their small dynasty around a 3rd round quarterback. Look at all the teams that have had monster year success and continuing the success over the years. Remember something, Aaron Rodgers was a 26th or 25th player taken. He was far down. He wasn't a lottery pick in the top 10. He fell in that draft. Alex Smith was the guy that was taken number 1 overall. Okay? I mean, Tone says, why do people change history? Because it makes them feel smarter. It doesn't make them seem smarter. It makes people feel smarter, Tone, when they try to change history. Jalen Hurts was drafted in the 2nd round to be a high ceiling, cheap back. Maybe like a wildcat guy? Okay. He wasn't thought of even by the NFL standards coming out of college. And everybody in Philly bitched about the pick. At that time, Wentz got paid and the Eagles couldn't afford to sign veteran backups, so they drafted one. Correct. That's what you do. And get this. Think about what Howie had to do then. Howie signed a guy to a big-time contract and a normal contract that you see in today's NFL. So much so that he couldn't bring in like a Joe Flacco or somebody. So what do? You draft a cheaper guy. Or you bring in a guy like Stenson Bennett, who could come in and play for you. Look at Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel's played 700 years in the NFL. And how many starts do you think he's had? 5, if that. I've never seen how many. Get this. That's the craziest number, too, with Chase Daniels. Chase Daniel's stats. Let's see this. How many starts did he have in his career? So he's played a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's played 13 years. And Chase Daniel has 5 starts. It's all lining up, Big Sales. Every day that goes by, Bijan Robinson makes more sense. Philly 500, you're dead on. You're dead on. Let me finish this here. At the time Wentz got paid and the Eagles needed to pay for a backup quarterback, so they drafted one. Remember the Taysom Hill contract screwed up the backup quarterback market? Yeah, because Sean Payton went out and paid that guy $10 million a year, and he's a gadget player. Hurts came in and outperformed his value. People need to stop changing it. That's right. He outperformed. Hey, Kirk Cousins outperformed his draft status. Russell Wilson outperformed his draft status. Jalen Hurts outperformed his draft status. Dak Prescott outperformed his draft status. Tom Brady outperformed his draft status. Jeff Garcia outperformed his draft status. That's why when you draft these, like I said, look at the NFC right now. Look at the NFC. The top quarterbacks were all later round picks. Rodgers is going to the Jets. So who's the best quarterback in the AFC that was a first rounder? Let's see. Stafford. Murray. Golf. Jones. Fields. So look at that list. I'm talking starters. Golf, Stafford, Murray. Those guys were all overdrafted, including Stafford. You know what's funny about Matthew Stafford? Matthew Stafford's getting it done in Detroit, and he couldn't get it done in Detroit. Golf is. Golf's turning it around. Golf's turning Detroit around. He's made them pause on what to do at quarterback. It's psycho. Geno Smith has turned it around in Seattle to make Seattle one of the reasons that they traded Russell Wilson. They were going to go into this draft and get a quarterback. They still may. But they paused. Because Geno, they just gave a contract, 2-year contract extension. They still may draft a guy. But at least you're making, these guys are making, dude, that's incredible. Now, you know what LA's doing? The Rams are shopping Stafford. The Rams are shopping Matthew Stafford. Lynx goes, Geno Smith is a fraud. He had a better passing season than Jalen Hurts. How's he a fraud? Then your guy's a fraud. If you think that Geno Smith is a fraud, he had a better passing. Every single statistic he had, he outdid Jalen in the passing game. So I'd be careful before you say that. I thought Geno played great last year. Technically, no, literally. He had a better passing year. Every stat, yardage, completion, he led the NFL. I got you, Don. Hey, every, technically, hilarious. Actually, he led the NFL in passing completion percentage. So why don't they give Geno $255 million? Well, because Geno's 32. You're not going to give a 32-year-old guy that money. You're going to give a younger guy that money. I don't know. And by the way, the point is, I didn't say who's worth more money. I said he had a better passing season. Don't get butthurt. That's right, Joseph. Geno deserves his due, man. Give it to him, too. Gave it to Jalen? Absolutely. Geno Smith deserves it. Dude, the guy got his ass kicked in the New York Jets locker room. Now he's in Seattle where people revere him and respect him. And he got a contract extension. Good for him. You should be preaching that and cheering for that, not shitting on that. And I'm not. I'm just saying, before you start saying that he's a fraud, there's not one statistic that Jalen Hurts had in the passing game that was better than Geno Smith a year ago. Don't get butthurt, guys. Good for him. That's right. Is Seattle going to beat the Eagles in a playoff game? No. No, he's not. TD to interception ratio. Way to go, Nick. You found one. Geno Smith statistics. Let's see. Geno Smith a year ago, when no one thought he was going to do anything. Started all 17 games, unlike Jalen. Well, here, touchdown interception ratio. He started all 17. 572 attempts to 400 completions. This guy had more completions than Jalen had attempts almost. Led the NFL in completion percentage at almost 70%. This guy completed 7 out of every 10 footballs he threw. That's a great year. Threw for 4,282. Not even remotely close in passing yards. Threw 30 touchdowns, 8 more than Jalen. Oh, yeah, but the touchdown to interception ratio, because he threw 3 times more than Jalen, I would look at that as a factor too, my friend, that he threw the ball 572 times versus Jalen's 439. Which era will have the most Hall of Famers at quarterback? You guys think Phillip Rivers is the Hall of Fame quarterback? You think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer? Eli Manning stats. You guys don't think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Fame quarterback? Wow. So here's Eli's stats the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. In Eli Manning's last 7 years, he had 1 winning season. He finished his career 117 and 117. He's a 500 quarterback. I mean, this guy had 1 winning season in almost a decade of play. He threw for 57,000 yards, Eli Manning. That's right. That's a great point. See, Brady was in the worst division in football, like Montana was. Who was Brady's biggest competition in the AFC East in his 19 years? Wasn't Buffalo. The shitty Jets for a little bit. The Chad Pennington 1-year Dolphins. Who did Brady play against in the East? Who did he play against? Phillip Rivers stats.
Here's a summary from
He's thrown more yards, more touchdowns. He's 134 and 106 as a winner. 421 touchdowns, 209. Led the NFL in attempts and completions and completion percentage 1 year. Threw how many times he threw for 4,000? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 of his 16 years, he threw for over 4,000 yards. You don't think that's Hall of Fame? Shit. You've only had one guy in the history of your franchise throw for 4,000 yards. This guy did it 13 times. You make it sound like the Eagles have all these high-profile quarterbacks. They don't. I got to take a timeout. Rivers Cousins? Rivers is better, man. So you don't think if Rivers is in a better organization in New York, and if they left the guys where they were, and Eli went to the Spanos family, and remember what happened? Archie Manning didn't want his kid to play there. Didn't want his kid to play there. They forced that trade, remember? Rivers is better than Cousins. I would take Rivers over Eli. But see, here's the thing. Eli's getting into Hall of Fame. One, because he's got a royalty name, and he beat the GOAT twice with MVP performances. And one of those teams was undefeated that he beat. So he's going in. Rivers is going to have to wait a little bit. All right. Hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the steaks and the steaks. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messon Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
My name is Dan Sileo, and I'm Managing Director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Big Stills, National Football Show. I'll tell you this. I tell you, one of the things that I think that the NFL is pissed off at Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson over is that those guys are trying to change the NFL's model and the owner's business plan. Does that make sense? That those guys are trying to change the model and how they do business, and they don't like it. You know, all 32 of those owners have a business plan, okay? And every business has a business plan. Howie has a way of doing his own business too, right? Okay, right? I mean, everyone has a business plan. This is how I'm going to make money. This is how I want my organization to be run. And when you get guys like Watson and Lamar Jackson wanting to change that model, that's their cow with this. That's the cow with it. Those owners, you're not going to walk into Ray Kroc's McDonald's and tell him how to run a franchise. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys ever watched that movie, The Founder. You got to watch it. Watching the way he expanded the two brothers' McDonald's. I mean, this guy made a comment. He goes like this: if I saw a guy in a pond drowning, I would put a garden hose in his mouth and watch him drown and not have a problem with it. That's business. Don't think that those 32 owners don't think like that. If they saw somebody out there that was trying to screw around with their business plan, okay, they would put a garden hose in their mouth and drown him. I'm not saying that literally. It's a euphemism. That's how they look at it. Dude, this is dog eat dog, man. Dude, become a billionaire. You're not a guppy. You're a shark. That's why I say when you're swimming around with them guys, Duck goes, Cleveland Browns screwed over the NFL, not Wilson or Jackson. Duck, hold on. I don't think the Browns did anything wrong. You know why? Who wants to go and play in Cleveland? Why would I want to play in Cleveland? What have you done since you've been given that franchise back after Baltimore? What have you done to make that a place that I want to come and play? What, the 48 different quarterbacks you've had since you've been given that franchise? What, the thousands of coaches? The millions of draft picks you failed on? The Cleveland Browns had to back up the Brinks truck. He was never going to go to Cleveland. The only way he went to Cleveland is Jimmy Haslam had to pay him and guarantee everything for him to go there. One day he said this: I'll never play in Cleveland. The next day, he wakes up, he opens the front door, and there's trash bags filled with money. $230 million filled with trash bags. Do you want to come now? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with both sides doing that. Here, let's do this. It's really great what Jalen did. People want to play in Philly. This is why culture is important in the building, that you don't have to do what Cleveland did. Philadelphia doesn't have to overpay guys and bribe guys. It was a bribe. Okay? Hey, Yale, am I right? The Cleveland Browns bribed Deshaun Watson to play in Cleveland. Am I right, Tone? They bribed him. He was going to go to Atlanta, Carolina, maybe the Eagles, maybe the Dolphins. They bribed him. And so the other owners are pissed off because you know why? The Browns didn't do it the right way. Building a culture, putting the hard work in. The Browns cheated. Hell yeah, $230 million fully guaranteed. I'd play on the moon. It's right. That's what exactly the dude. The Browns cheated, and the other owners feel cheated. We're the ones that put the like. If you're Jeffrey Lurie, you're pissed off at the Browns, even though you have nothing to do with Watson. Why? You're the ones that created a culture. You're the ones that made it so free agents want to play there. You're the one that gets the draft right. You're the one that takes care of the players once they leave. You do all that hard work. What do the Browns do? They bribe a guy. Tell me that's not aggravating. All right. Closer to the draft, man. I appreciate everybody. Thank you guys so much. Tone, absolutely spectacular work. When you don't win, you get desperate. Weapons, absolutely, man. I appreciate that as much, too. Thank you guys so much. Big Xander, Big Joe, thank you guys so much, man. Till tomorrow. Don't forget, 3 to 6 Eastern. We have Mark Schlereth at 3:30 from Fox Sports. He will join us, so we will see you tomorrow, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.